Fix this and I'll give you 100 million. Lionel Garza jabbed his finger at 10-year-old Kylian Alexander like he was an insect. The boy froze beside his mother's cleaning cart while she emptied waste bins around 250 silent investors. Garza's face twisted with cruel amusement. Maybe a maid's son can solve what my Caltech graduates can't. Vicious laughter rippled through Garza Dynamics' glass-walled boardroom. Kylian's mother, Elena Alexander, grabbed his wrist to drag him out. 3 million livestream viewers watched the billionaire CEO shred a child's dignity for sport. Behind Garza, holographic displays blazed with cascading failure alerts. The quantum logistics AI, core to global supply chains, had collapsed 96 hours ago. Ports froze from Singapore to Rotterdam. Cargo worth $4 billion sat idle. Stock plunged 38%. Shipping titans sat stone-faced. Maersk reps wore navy suits. Costco representatives appeared in crisp white. Evergreen executives scrolled tablets. 60 doctorate engineers hunched over consoles, faces lit by red diagnostics. Lead architect Dr. Lena Voss approached Garza, hands shaking. We've tried quantum rollback, predictive pruning, full node resets. Nothing works. Livestream counter showed 3.2 million. Hashtag Garza crash trended worldwide. Kylian had trailed Elena since age 5. While peers played football, he scavenged discarded servers from maintenance corridors, taught himself binary from faded manuals, debugged code by ear from vent whispers. His playground consisted of cooling vents. His lullaby came from fan hums. Garza paced the polished floor. Real systems demand Ivy League rigor, not street curiosity. Intelligence isn't democratic. Elena bent over another bin. 15 years cleaning these towers, watching geniuses fail while her son absorbed everything. Garza's phone vibrated with board threats. Rivals prepared patent grabs. Maersk CEO spoke coldly. Your AI stranded our fleet in Suez. 4 vessels, $180 million daily loss. Garza forced calm. The demo was meant to crown dominance. Instead, it became his public trial. The room's tension was suffocating. Billion-dollar deals hung in balance. Thousands of jobs waited for the verdict. The future of global logistics teetered on this single moment. Kylian shifted beside the cart, eyes locked on a looping error cascade. Fingers twitched in air code. Elena whispered, "Time to leave the important people." But Kylian's gaze never left the holograms. What happens when the one person with the answer is the one nobody thinks to ask? Kylian stood up as Elena reached for his hand. "Mom, wait." Elena flushed with embarrassment. "Kylian, no. These people are busy." But his small voice cut through the tension. "Excuse me." The room went quiet. 250 heads turned toward a 10-year-old boy who had no business speaking in this crisis. Garza's face darkened. "Not now, kid. The adults are working." Kylian took 3 steps forward, sneakers squeaking on the floor. "I think I see what's wrong." Uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the investor crowd. Costco's CEO raised an eyebrow. Evergreen's team exchanged amused glances. "That's very sweet." Garza's voice dripped condescension. "But this is quantum logistics, son. Maybe stick to video games." Dr. Voss started to intervene, but Kylian pressed forward with startling confidence. "The system is confused." Garza gestured at the wall of flashing holograms. "Yes, obviously it's malfunctioning. That's why we have 60 experts trying to." Kylian interrupted with unusual certainty. "It's not broken. It just doesn't understand what you're asking." The room fell silent. Every engineer stopped typing. Kylian pointed at the main hologram. "Right there. You're telling the route to lock, but you meant to ask if it should." Dr. Voss squinted at the display, following Kylian's finger to a specific operator buried among billions. "It's like when you say your path is blocked instead of asking, 'Is your path blocked?'" Kylian explained simply. "The system gets mixed up." Garza's confidence wavered slightly. That's not how quantum routing works. Can I show you? Kylian asked with fearless childhood curiosity. The livestream viewer count hit 4 million. Comments flooded in faster than moderators could process them. #KylianVisa began trending worldwide. Maersk CEO leaned forward with interest. I'd like to see what the boy suggests. Garza felt trapped. Refusing would look petty. Agreeing would legitimize a child's opinion over his team's expertise. Fine, he said through gritted teeth. Dr. Voss, let him point out whatever he thinks he sees. When nothing happens, we return to serious work. Kylian walked to Dr. Voss's workstation, completely unintimidated by the room full of powerful adults watching his every move. Here, he pointed at the hologram. The system thinks you're changing the route instead of checking it. You need to fix how you ask the question. Dr. Voss stared at the operator Kylian indicated. Such a tiny detail buried in trillions of calculations. Her fingers trembled as she made the smallest possible change. One keystroke, one tiny symbol. She hit enter. The room held its collective breath. Error messages continued cascading for a moment. Then one by one they began disappearing. System status lights shifted from angry red to cautious yellow to triumphant green. Within 45 seconds, every hologram showed perfect operation. The AI system hummed back to life, running smoothly for the first time in 4 days. Kylian smiled with quiet satisfaction. Sometimes systems just need clear questions. Garza stood frozen, watching his multi-billion crisis dissolve because of advice from a child who wasn't even in middle school. The room erupted in whispers. Phones buzzed with urgent messages. The shipping executives sat up straighter, suddenly very interested in continuing negotiations. But this was just the beginning. What happens when a 10-year-old embarrasses the smartest people in the room on live television? The room exploded into chaos. Engineers rushed to their consoles, confirming what seemed impossible. The system was running perfectly. 4 days of failure fixed by a child's observation. Garza's face cycled through disbelief, embarrassment, and growing anger. That can't be right. One tiny change. Our entire team missed one tiny change. Dr. Voss pulled up system diagnostics, her voice shaking with amazement. Garza, he's right. The response time has improved by 42%. Delay rates dropped to 0. Maersk CEO stood up, suddenly animated. Show us the global performance metrics. The main hologram filled with green bars and upward trending graphs. Every measurement showed dramatic improvement. The shipping executives leaned forward, whispering excitedly among themselves. Garza felt his authority slipping away like sand. Even if that's true, which I find hard to believe, anyone could have spotted that eventually. It was just a matter of time. Kylian tilted his head with the innocent wisdom that only children possess. But you didn't spot it. And time costs ships, doesn't it, Mr. Garza? Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Several investors pulled out their phones, frantically texting updates to their firms. Garza's assistant whispered urgently in his ear about social media exploding. #Kylian the genius was trending alongside #Garza the blind. Stock prices were responding in real time to a child's success. This is ridiculous, Garza announced to the room. One lucky guess doesn't make someone an engineer. Real logistics requires years of training, advanced degrees, and systematic methodology. Kylian looked around the room of 60 experts who had failed where he succeeded. Maybe sometimes you just need fresh eyes. Dr. Voss couldn't hide her fascination. Kylian, how did you see that when we missed it? You were all looking at the hard parts, Kylian explained simply. But the mistake was in the easy part. Nobody checks the easy parts. Evergreen's technical director spoke up. What other easy parts haven't we checked? Kylian studied the holograms again, his young mind processing patterns that escaped the adults. There are more places like that one. Want me to show you? Garza stepped between Kylian and the holograms. Absolutely not. This has gone far enough. We have protocols, procedures, and professional standards. Are you afraid he'll find more mistakes? Maersk CEO asked pointedly. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Garza realized he was trapped by his own arrogance. Saying yes would admit incompetence. Saying no would look like he was afraid of a 10-year-old. Fine, Garza said through clenched teeth. But when he can't find anything else, this charade ends. Kylian approached the wall hologram with quiet confidence. He studied the scrolling code for 30 seconds, then pointed to another section. Here, same problem. You're telling the cargo to reroute instead of asking if it should. Dr. Voss checked the line. Her face went pale. He's right again. And here. Kylian pointed to a different area. The system thinks it should always prioritize speed instead of checking safety. More frantic typing. More confirmations of Kylian's accuracy. How are you doing this? Dr. Voss whispered. Kylian shrugged with childlike simplicity. When my mom cleans vents, she checks every corner. You guys only looked at the middle parts. Garza watched his team of Caltech graduates being schooled by a child who learned coding from watching through maintenance stores. His multi-billion company's reputation was crumbling on live television. Even if he's found a few basic errors, Garza said desperately, that doesn't mean he understands our complex systems architecture. Kylian looked at him with surprising directness. I don't understand everything, but I understand when something's asking the wrong question. Costco's representative spoke up. How many more wrong questions are there? Kylian scanned the holograms one more time. Lots. Maybe thousands. They're everywhere once you know what to look for. The room buzzed with excitement and horror. Thousands of errors meant their supply chains had been vulnerable for months. It also meant Kylian could potentially save the industry. Garza felt his world tilting. This is impossible. You can't just walk in here. And actually, interrupted Evergreen's technical director, this child has demonstrated more practical insight in 10 minutes than we've seen from your team in 4 days. The live stream comments were going insane. Logistics professors from top universities were logging in to verify Kylian's findings. Tech journalists were writing headlines in real time. Dr. Voss looked at Kylian with newfound respect. Would you be willing to help us find the other errors? Garza's voice cracked with desperation. He's 10 years old. This is a multi-billion corporation, not a playground. Then maybe, Maersk CEO said coldly. Your multi-billion corporation should hire better engineers. The insult hit Garza like a physical blow. His own clients were turning against him because of a child's success. Elena finally stepped forward, overwhelmed by the attention. Kylian, maybe we should go. These people have important work to do. No, said Costco's representative firmly. I think Kylian's work is the most important thing happening in this room. Garza realized he was losing control completely. His experts were being outperformed. His clients were taking the child's side. His authority was evaporating in front of millions of viewers. But Kylian wasn't finished. He had more surprises that would shake Garza's world to its very foundation. How many more impossible things can one 10-year-old accomplish before the adults admit they were wrong? Garza's phone exploded with notifications. His stock price had jumped 18% in the last hour. Tech blogs were calling Kylian the child prodigy who saved Garza Dynamics. Professional networks were flooded with posts about hiring practices and hidden talent. But the real pressure came from the room itself. The shipping magnates were no longer preparing exit strategies. They were calculating how many billions Kylian's insight could salvage. Maersk CEO declared with fresh command. Let's prolong this session. If the boy can resolve flaws your PhDs overlooked, he should audit our fleet routers too. Garza felt the air thicken. Out of the question. We're managing quantum supply chains. Cargo that feeds nations, medicine that saves lives, defense grids that secure borders. You can't simply hand control to. Evergreen's lead engineer cut in. To someone who's already outperformed your specialists. The livestream viewer count spiked to 4.5 million. International outlets interrupted programming for the 10-year-old dismantling a titan. Kylian stood amid the frenzy, scanning fresh holograms Dr. Voss projected. These mapped inventory grids, predictive cargo flows, global trade algorithms. Kylian, Dr. Voss asked softly. What patterns emerge here? Garza surged forward. Don't respond. These networks orchestrate planetary commerce. One misstep could. Kylian glanced up, curious. Make them run smoother like the ports. The room hushed at the straightforward truth. Garza saw his protest dissolve. If the boy optimized routing, why halt at one layer? Costco's delegate opened a secure tablet. Kylian, our simulations confirm your gateway tweaks/delays 87%. Insurance premiums could plummet by hundreds of millions. Garza's panic crested. This defies reason. He's 10. He grasps nothing of treaties, tariffs, geopolitical compliance, operational sovereignty. Kylian angled his head. Do routes care about borders? What? The paths just need precise queries, right? They don't mind the source if the logic holds. Dr. Voss grinned through the strain. He's onto something, Garza. Garza sensed his dominance evaporating. The boy was too rational, too precise, too unassailably right. His deputy hurried over with breaking alerts. Sir, FedEx is on line 1. HL on hold. Both seek direct talks with Kylian. The room hummed with urgency. The largest logistics firms worldwide scrambled to recruit a child who eclipsed Garza's staff. Board lines lit up. Stakeholders demanded crisis calls. Rivals positioned for takeover bids, detecting weakness. Enough, Garza stated with fraying control. Kylian, your input is noted, but you and your mother must depart. No, Merskio rose. We insist he remain. We'll compensate for ongoing guidance. Garza's cheeks flushed. Impossible. Age laws, certification mandates, academic prerequisites. Kylian watched the grown-ups debate his fate as if absent. Can I check the next holograms? I won't disrupt anything. His guileless plea quieted the space. How do you refuse a boy who's already rescued your empire? Dr. Voss loaded the inventory optimization layer. Thoughts, Kylian? He examined with fierce focus. Minutes later, he highlighted clusters. Same issues. The system assumes paths instead of verifying. Frantic confirmations, verified corrections. Each adjustment elevated throughput. Garza observed his legacy fracture. A child methodically unveiled decades of team oversights before elite partners. The predictive modeling suite followed. Kylian isolated 21 vital flaws in 15 minutes. Flaws that might have sunk markets in erroneous forecasts. Garza's device rang non-stop. Offers for Kylian flooded from global players. Press inquiries doubled hourly. His investors challenged his judgment. Halt, Garza murmured. The room pivoted. I said halt. Garza's tone splintered with urgency. This is my firm, my networks, my crew. I refuse to let some unschooled boy expose our shortcomings. Kylian met his eyes with pure candor only youth delivers. But Mr. Garza, I'm not exposing flaws. They were there. I'm only revealing them. The room plunged into stillness. Garza grasped he'd been dismantled publicly by a 10-year-old's irrefutable point. But Kylian held one more bombshell. Garza's disgrace spread instantly. The soundbite of Kylian's line raced across platforms. Kylian exposes became top trend globally. Yet Garza clung to fight. If collapsing, he'd drag the boy down. Very well, Garza pronounced with icy poise. Clever, aren't you? Let's raise stakes. He signaled his aide, who activated the master hologram. Billions of code lines governing everything from container tracking to satellite relays. 36 hours, Garza proclaimed. Locate and correct every flaw in our full ecosystem. All of it. Triumph earns $100 million from my account. Fail. Garza's grin sharpened. You and your mother vanish from these premises eternally. We broadcast your prior wins as sheer fortune. Kylian eyed the daunting data sea. Countless subsystems, endless risks. A feat impossible for expert squads. Never mind one boy. Elena moved shieldingly. Kylian, we've shown enough. But Kylian absorbed the holograms with steady resolve. It's fine, Mom. Patterns are clear now. Dr. Voss appeared anxious. Kylian, this surpasses basic tweaks. This is planetary scale, failure intolerant. Garza's assurance resurfaced as uncertainty flickered. Precisely. True networks demand true mastery, not gimmicks from a lucky youth. The shipping leaders swapped wary looks. Perhaps Garza held ground. Perhaps Kylian's triumphs were chance. Garza leaned in. Naturally, if fear grips, we end here. No disgrace in knowing limits. Kylian lifted his gaze with unwavering poise. I'm not afraid, Mr. Garza. Are you? The dare crackled like static. Garza knew a 10-year-old had baited him into spectacle, yet retreat would worsen defeat. Accepted. 36 hours commence now. The timer launched at 2:45 p.m. Kylian claimed Dr. Voss's station, fingers stretching to keys. Central hologram displayed layer upon layer. Freight webs, health shipments, finance flows, defense logistics. Or one. Kylian crafted approach. Skipped line by line, hunted repetition signatures. Identical confusions recurred system-wide. Our 3 breakthrough. Kylian flagged 7 core patterns echoing thousands-fold, each tied to directive query mix-ups. Garza strode tensely, glancing clocks. Livestream hit 6.5 million. Wager sites launched on Kylian's odds. The biggest revelation loomed, ready to redefine everything Garza believed about power, expertise, and the quiet genius hiding in plain sight. Mommy, wait. Elena flushed with embarrassment. Kylian, no. But his voice cut the room. Excuse me. 250 heads turned toward the 10-year-old boy who had no business speaking in this crisis. Garza's face darkened further. Not now, kid. The adults are working. Kylian stepped forward, sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. I think I see what's wrong. Uncomfortable chuckles rippled through the investor crowd once more. Costco's CEO raised an eyebrow higher. Evergreen's team exchanged even more amused glances. That's very sweet. Garza's voice dripped with thicker condescension. But this is quantum logistics, son. Maybe stick to hopscotch or whatever kids do these days. Dr. Voss started to intervene again, but Kylian pressed forward with the same startling confidence. The system is confused. Garza gestured broadly at the wall of flashing holograms. Yes, obviously it's malfunctioning. That's why we have 60 experts trying to fix it. Kylian interrupted with unusual certainty for his age. It's not broken. It just doesn't understand what you're asking. The room fell silent for the second time. Every engineer stopped typing mid-keystroke. Kylian pointed at the main hologram with a steady finger. Right there. You're telling the route to lock, but you meant to ask if it should. Dr. Voss squinted at the display, leaning in to follow Kylian's finger to a specific operator buried among billions of lines. It's like when you say your path is blocked instead of asking, "Is your path blocked?" Kylian explained simply, his voice clear amid the hush. The system gets mixed up. Garza's confidence wavered slightly once more. That's not how quantum routing works, boy. Can I show you? Kylian asked with fearless childhood curiosity that cut through the corporate armor. The livestream viewer count hit 4 million in that instant. Comments flooded in faster than moderators could process them. Hashtag Kylianism began trending worldwide, climbing charts at lightning speed. Merskio leaned forward with genuine interest now. I'd like to see what the boy suggests. Garza felt trapped in his own web. Refusing would look petty and weak. Agreeing would legitimize a child's opinion over his team's expertise. Fine. he said through gritted teeth that ground audibly. Dr. Voss, let him point out whatever he thinks he sees. When nothing happens, we return to serious work. Kylian walked to Dr. Voss's workstation without hesitation, completely unintimidated by the room full of powerful adults watching his every move. Here. He pointed at the hologram with precision. The system thinks you're changing the route instead of checking it. You need to fix how you ask the question. Dr. Voss stared at the operator Kylian indicated. Such a tiny detail buried in trillions of calculations that no one had flagged. Her fingers trembled as she made the smallest possible change. One keystroke, one tiny symbol swapped. She hit enter with a soft click that echoed like thunder. The room held its collective breath in unison. Error messages continued cascading for a tense moment. Then, one by one, they began disappearing from the holograms. System status lights shifted from angry red to cautious yellow to triumphant green in a wave. Within 45 seconds, every hologram showed perfect operation. The AI system hummed back to life, running smoothly for the first time in 4 grueling days. Ports from Singapore to Rotterdam flickered back into motion on subsidiary displays. Kylian smiled with quiet satisfaction that lit his young face. Sometimes systems just need clear questions. Garza stood frozen in place, watching his multi-billion crisis dissolve because of advice from a child who wasn't even in middle school yet. The room erupted in whispers that built into a roar. Phones buzzed with urgent messages from headquarters around the globe. The shipping executives sat up straighter, suddenly very interested in continuing negotiations that had been on the verge of collapse. But this was just the beginning of the unraveling. The room exploded into full chaos seconds later. Engineers rushed to their consoles in a frenzy, confirming what seemed impossible to their trained eyes. The system was running perfectly without a single hiccup. 4 days of relentless failure fixed by a child's single observation. Garza's face cycled through disbelief, embarrassment, and a growing anger that twisted his features. That can't be right. One tiny change. Our entire team missed one tiny change. Dr. Voss pulled up system diagnostics with rapid taps, her voice shaking with amazement that bordered on awe. Garza, he's right. The response time has improved by 42% across the board. Delay rates dropped to 0 in every node. Maersk CEO stood up abruptly, suddenly animated with energy. Show us the global performance metrics right now. The main hologram filled with green bars and upward trending graphs that painted a picture of revival. Every measurement showed dramatic improvement in real time. The shipping executives leaned forward in their seats, whispering excitedly among themselves in multiple languages. Garza felt his authority slipping away like sand through desperate fingers. Even if that's true, which I find hard to believe still, anyone could have spotted that eventually. It was just a matter of time before we got there. Kylian tilted his head with the innocent wisdom that only children possess, untouched by corporate politics. But you didn't spot it. And time costs ships, doesn't it, Mr. Garza? Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd for the first time without malice. Several investors pulled out their phones immediately, frantically texting updates to their firms and boards. Garza's assistant whispered urgently in his ear about social media exploding into a wildfire. Hashtag Kylian the genius was trending alongside hashtag Garza the blind in equal measure. Stock prices were responding in real time to a child's success, climbing steadily on public exchanges. This is ridiculous, Garza announced to the room with a voice that tried to reclaim command. One lucky guess doesn't make someone an engineer. Real logistics requires years of training, advanced degrees, and systematic methodology that this boy couldn't possibly grasp. Kylian looked around the room of 60 experts who had failed where he succeeded in minutes. Maybe sometimes you just need fresh eyes that aren't clouded by the same thinking. Dr. Voss couldn't hide her fascination any longer. Kylian, how did you see that when we missed it after 4 days of non-stop work? You were all looking at the hard parts, Kylian explained simply, as if stating the obvious. But the mistake was in the easy part. Nobody checks the easy parts because they assume they're fine. Evergreen's technical director spoke up with a voice full of curiosity. What other easy parts haven't we checked in all this time? Kylian studied the holograms again, his young mind processing patterns that escaped the adults despite their credentials. There are more places like that one. Want me to show you right now? The question hung in the air, daring and pure. Garza's mind raced for an escape, but the momentum had shifted irrevocably. He had mocked the boy to assert dominance, but now dominance belonged to the unexpected. The live stream counter ticked past 4.2 million viewers, with major news networks cutting into regular programming to cover the unfolding drama. Analysts debated in split screens whether this was the end of Garza's reign or the birth of a new era in tech. Elena stood frozen by the cleaning cart, her heart pounding with a mix of pride and fear for what this attention meant for her son. She had always known Kylian was special, but seeing it play out before the world's eyes was overwhelming. Dr. Voss turned to Garza with a look that mixed respect for the boy and pity for her boss. We should let him continue. The metrics don't lie. Garza swallowed hard, tasting defeat for the first time in years. The room waited for his response, the air thick with anticipation. Costco's representative nodded encouragingly at Kylian, while Maersk's team pulled up their own internal dashboards to cross-verify the improvements. Ports that had been stagnant were now reporting clearance times dropping by the minute. Containers long delayed began moving toward their destinations. The economic ripple was already being felt in markets worldwide. Kylian waited patiently, his small frame a stark contrast to the towering holograms and suited giants around him. He did not gloat or celebrate. He simply stood ready to help if allowed. Garza finally exhaled, his shoulders slumping slightly. Proceed with caution, he muttered to Dr. Voss, though his eyes never left Kylian. The boy nodded and turned back to the workstation, fingers hovering over the keys. The first fix had been a spark. What followed would ignite a fire that consumed assumptions about expertise, age, and the true nature of problem-solving. Engineers gathered closer, some skeptical, others eager to learn from the child. The live stream chat scrolled with messages of support and disbelief. Stocks continued their upward climb, erasing a chunk of the $4 billion loss in mere minutes. Garza watched it all, realizing the mockery he had intended had boomeranged spectacularly. Kylian's calm demeanor amid the storm only amplified the impact. He was not performing, he was solving. And in that difference lay the power to upend everything Garza had built on credentials and hierarchy. The immediate aftermath settled into a focused hum as teams verified the global reach of the single change. Satellite links confirmed rerouting efficiency. Warehouse inventories updated without lag. Predictive models recalibrated seamlessly. Maersk CEO smiled for the first time that day. Extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Garza forced a nod, but inside, the seeds of doubt about his own methods took root. Kylian glanced up briefly. There are patterns like this everywhere. If you want, I can find more. The offer was genuine, devoid of ego. Dr. Voss placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. We'd like that very much. The room, once hostile, now leaned in with collective breath held for the next revelation. The first climax had passed, but its echoes promised a cascade of changes no one could foresee. Nervous laughter gave way to earnest discussion. #KylianGenius trended higher, with clips of the fix looping endlessly online. The world outside the boardroom began to awaken to the possibility that genius wore no uniform, held no degree, and spoke with the clarity of youth unburdened by convention. Dr. Voss's fascination deepened as she leaned closer to Kylian. Kylian, how did you see that when we missed it after 4 days? He shrugged with the simple logic of a child. You looked at the hard layers. The mistake was in the easy gateway. Evergreen's technical director leaned in further. What other easy parts haven't we checked? Kylian scanned the holograms once more, his young mind already mapping the repetitions. Thousands. The same confusion is everywhere across the platforms. Garza's pushback came swift and sharp. This ends now. Protocols exist for a reason. We can't let a child poke around in critical infrastructure. Merskcio crossed his arms with a skeptical smile. Afraid he'll find more flaws that your experts overlooked? Garza felt trapped again. His earlier mockery turning into a noose of his own making. Refusing would confirm the fear. Agreeing risked further exposure. Fine, he conceded through clenched teeth. But when he fails to find anything substantial, this charade is over for good. Kylian nodded without argument and turned back to the console, his small fingers dancing over the controls with surprising dexterity. He started with the inventory misroutes, highlighting clusters where the system commanded redirects instead of querying alternatives. Then he moved to predictive overwrites, where forecasts assumed outcomes without validation checks. Quantum handshakes followed, the core linkages between nodes confusing affirmations with interrogations. In just 2 hours, he isolated 300 errors, each fix sending ripples of boosted efficiency through the holograms. Ports reported smoother clearances. Warehouses updated inventories in real time. Global trade flows stabilized further. The livestream surge hit 5 million viewers as word spread like wildfire across digital platforms. Tech professors from renowned institutions logged in to verify the changes, their endorsements popping up in the comment feeds. Garza's phone vibrated incessantly with board members in panic mode, demanding updates, while rival firms circled closer, sniffing opportunities in the exposed vulnerabilities. Kylian paused after the latest batch, looking up at the team. Your training teaches telling instead of asking. The same mistake repeats because that's how everyone learned it. Dr. Voss grew pale as the implication sank in. Systemic. It's baked into our methodology. The room buzzed with a new energy, the initial shock giving way to reluctant admiration. Engineers clustered around Kylian's station, murmuring questions and scribbling notes. One senior developer admitted quietly, "We've been optimizing around the symptoms, not the root." Kylian demonstrated another fix in the cargo prioritization module, where the system dictated hierarchies without confirming variables. The hologram refreshed, showing a 28% drop in projected delays. Evergreen's representatives exchanged nods, pulling up their own datapads to run parallel simulations. This could shave weeks off our Trans-Pacific timelines, one muttered. Garza watched from the periphery. His towering presence diminished as the boy commanded the room without trying. His attempts to interject fell flat. The executives waved him off, too engrossed in the unfolding corrections. The viewer count climbed steadily, with social media exploding into debates about corporate blind spots and untapped potential. Influencers live reacted, praising Kylian's approach while critiquing Garza's leadership. Board alerts flashed on Garza's device. Emergency calls scheduled, legal teams mobilizing to assess liability from the exposed flaws. Rivals like major carriers sent discreet inquiries through back channels, probing for acquisition angles on the now revitalized tech. Kylian continued methodically, his focus unbroken despite the growing crowd. He tackled a cluster in the inventory grids next, where overwrites erased query logs, leading to phantom shipments. See here. It tells the warehouse to update without asking if the data's current. Dr. Voss implemented the change, and metrics jumped again. Efficiency up another 15%. The engineers began to collaborate openly, suggesting sections for Kylian to review based on his pattern description. What about the handshake protocols in satellite uplinks? One asked. Kylian nodded and dove in, isolating 20 similar issues in minutes. The fixes cascaded, unlocking bottlenecks that had plagued operations for months. Whispers turned to open discussion among the investors. Costco's team debated in low tones about adapting similar audits internally. Merskcio pulled Garza aside briefly. This boy's onto something revolutionary. How did he slip through your talent net? Garza forced a smile, but inside, resentment brewed alongside reluctant awe. The systemic insight hit hardest. Kylian's observation about training methods implied years of flawed education in Garza's programs, potentially invalidating certifications and protocols company-wide. Dr. Voss grew increasingly animated. Her initial skepticism replaced by enthusiasm. If this pattern holds, we're looking at a complete overhaul. But it could cut costs by billions annually. The room's atmosphere shifted from crisis to opportunity, with Kylian at the center. He remained unfazed, explaining each find with simple analogies, comparing code to conversations, queries to polite questions. The engineers nodded along, some even chuckling at the clarity. Garza's phone continued its assault, shareholders praising the rebound, but demanding explanations for the oversights. Rivals accelerated their maneuvers, with encrypted messages hinting at poaching Kylian directly. The boy paused briefly for a sip of juice from Elena, who stood nearby with a mix of pride and worry. "You're doing great, Mijo," she whispered. Kylian smiled faintly. "Thanks, Mom. It's like the servers back home, just bigger." The comment drew curious looks from the team, but no one pressed. Instead, they urged him on to the next layer. The livestream chat scrolled with predictions. Would Kylian find all the errors? How many more? Viewer bets placed on totals, with some wagering on Garza's eventual apology. The surge showed no sign of slowing, as outlets embedded the feed in their coverage. Garza paced the edges, his earlier mockery now a haunting echo. Each fix chipped at his foundation, revealing not just code flaws but leadership gaps. Dr. Voss turned to him at one point. "This is systemic, Lionel. Our whole approach needs rethinking." He nodded curtly, but the pale expression on her face mirrored his growing dread. The pattern hunt continued, Kylian's insights flowing steadily, each one a step closer to total exposure. The escalating twists began to unfold as Kylian delved deeper. What started as isolated fixes revealed a web of interconnected failures. In the predictive overwrites, he found chains where one confusion triggered dozens more downstream. "It's like a domino line," he said. "Fix the first, and the rest straighten." Dr. Voss tested a batch, and entire sectors cleared at once. The room's energy intensified, with executives now actively participating, suggesting their own pain points for review. Evergreen's rep forwarded an encrypted file. "Our interface with your API shows similar lags. Could it be the same?" Kylian reviewed it quickly. Yes, same telling instead of asking in the handshake. The fix not only resolved Garza's side but suggested patches for partners, strengthening alliances on the spot. Garza's pushback weakened with each success. His interjections ignored as the group leaned into the momentum. The live stream hit peaks with viral clips of Kylian's explanations, professors chiming in from academic feeds to confirm. Garza's board flooded him with messages, praise for recovery, but urgent calls for accountability. Rivals shifted from observation to action, with scouts already researching Kylian's background. Kylian's insight culminated in a pivotal moment. After clearing another 300 errors, he paused. "Your training teaches telling, not asking. The same mistake repeats because that's how everyone learned it from the start." Dr. Voss grew pale as the full scope dawned. "Systemic. It's embedded in our foundational code and our people." The revelation hung heavy, implying retraining for thousands, audits for years of projects. The room absorbed the weight, whispers turning to strategy talks. Garza stood silent, the costliest oversight of his career laid bare by a boy from the corridors. Garza's silence broke like a dam under pressure. He strode to the center of the boardroom and snapped his fingers at an aide. A massive full-architecture hologram wheeled in on silent casters, unfurling into a three-dimensional lattice of trillions of daily routes that pulsed like living arteries. Every container, every satellite ping, every predictive forecast shimmered in crystalline detail. "Enough games," Garza declared, voice low but carrying the weight of finality. 36 hours. Fix every error in our entire ecosystem. All of it. Succeed, And I write you a personal check for $100 million. Fail. His smile turned razor-sharp. You and your mother are banned from this building forever. And we announce to the world that your earlier successes were beginner's luck. The room inhaled as one. The wager landed like a gauntlet thrown at the feet of a child. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. Kylian, we don't need this. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Her voice cracked with maternal fear, the cleaning cart forgotten behind her. Kylian studied the colossal hologram, eyes tracing the glowing threads without a flicker of doubt. I see the patterns now, Mom. They're all the same confusion, just repeated in different places. He turned to Garza, calm as still water. I accept. The clock started at 3 p.m. sharp. A digital timer projected above the architecture, counting down from 36 hours in stark red numerals. Kylian claimed the master station at the heart of the room, a curved console ringed by secondary screens. Engineers parted like a sea, some skeptical, others awestruck. Dr. Voss adjusted the height of the chair so his feet could reach the floor. The live stream counter rolled past 5.5 million and kept climbing. Hour 1 unfolded in focused silence. Kylian did not dive into random code. Instead, he built a strategy map, tagging repetition clusters with color-coded overlays. Red for directive query mismatches in routing gateways. Blue for overwrites in inventory ledgers. Green for handshake failures in quantum nodes. The hologram responded to his gestures, zooming and filtering with fluid precision. He murmured to himself, almost inaudibly. Same route, different branches. By the end of the first hour, he had outlined 7 primary pattern families and flagged initial hotspots totaling 98 errors. Efficiency metrics ticked upward by 4% globally, a whisper of what was to come. Garza circled the perimeter, arms folded, eyes never leaving the boy. He addressed the investors in a stage whisper meant to carry. Real systems demand real stamina, not bursts of childish curiosity. Maersk CEO raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Elena hovered at the edge of the console ring, worry etched deep in the lines around her eyes. She offered a bottle of water. Kylian accepted with a quick smile. Thanks, Mom. I'm good. The exchange drew soft os from the livestream chat, now at 5.7 million. Hour 4 arrived with a breakthrough. Kylian had isolated 500 errors, each corrected with surgical precision. Ports in Rotterdam reported a 31% reduction in backlog. Singapore's container throughput surged 27%. The hologram's arteries glowed brighter, fewer red warning nodes blinking. Garza leaned over the console, voice dripping mockery. Tired yet, kid? 4 hours in, and you've barely scratched the surface. Kylian did not look up. I'm just warming up, Mr. Garza. The retort landed clean. Several engineers stifled grins. The viewer count hit 6 million. Online betting pools exploded. Odds on Kylian finishing under 30 hours, over 30, or failing entirely. Cryptocurrency wagers poured in alongside traditional bookmakers. Psychological warfare intensified. Garza addressed the room again, louder this time. Observe the boy's pace. Real enterprise solutions require endurance, not sprints. We've built stamina into our teams through years of rigorous selection. He gestured at the 60 doctorate holders, who shifted uncomfortably. Elena brought a small sandwich wrapped in foil from the staff cafeteria. Kylian ate bites between keystrokes, never breaking rhythm. Dr. Voss monitored vitals on a side screen. Heart rate steady, focus unwavering. The timer read 32 hours remaining. Hour 10 delivered the second climax of the wager. Kylian crossed the 800 error threshold. Predictive modeling modules, once sluggish under flawed assumptions, now processed scenarios 200% faster. Forecasts that had taken minutes resolved in seconds. The hologram displayed a cascade of green confirmations, each fix propagating like dominoes toppling in perfect order. Global trade dashboards lit up with record efficiencies. A container ship off the coast of Valencia adjusted course mid-ocean and shaved 3 hours off its ETA. The room erupted in spontaneous applause from the engineers. Even Costco's stoic representatives clapped. Garza's jaw tightened. Applause was not part of his script. Livestream analytics showed 6 million concurrent viewers, a record for any corporate feed. Comment sections scrolled with memes. Kylian's face superimposed on superhero capes, Garza as a cartoon villain twirling a mustache. Betting pools updated in real time. Kylian now favored at 3:1 to finish under deadline. Cryptocurrency wallets linked to the stream received micro-donations tagged #TeamKylian. Elena stood behind her son, one hand resting lightly on his shoulder, pride warring with exhaustion in her eyes. She whispered, "You don't have to prove anything more." Kylian shook his head gently. "It's not about proving, Mom. It's about making it right." Garza paced faster, phone buzzing with board demands for contingency plans. Rivals escalated poaching attempts. Encrypted offers for Kylian's consulting services arrived via secure channels. Dr. Voss pulled Garza aside. "Lionel, the boy's methodology is rewriting our benchmarks. We need to document this." Garza waved her off. "Document failure when the clock hits 0. But doubt crept into his tone. The hologram's health metrics climbed relentlessly. 99.2% node stability, 41% overall efficiency gain since the wager began. Investors murmured about valuation rebounds exceeding initial projections. Kylian paused briefly to stretch, rolling his shoulders. The timer showed 26 hours remaining. He addressed the room without turning. "The patterns are fractal. Fix the small gateways, and the big routes heal themselves." Engineers nodded, scribbling furiously. One junior developer asked, "How do you prioritize clusters?" Kylian demonstrated a heat map overlay, weighting impact on global throughput. The technique was elegant, intuitive, and entirely self-taught. Dr. Voss's eyes widened. "That's graduate-level optimization." Kylian shrugged. "It's just seeing where the traffic jams start." Garza's psychological barbs continued. 10 hours in and fatigue will set in soon. Children need sleep. Professionals push through. Elena's worry deepened. She glanced at the clock, then at her son's steady hands. The livestream chat flooded with messages urging rest, but Kylian waved them off with a small smile visible on camera. "I'm okay. The system needs me awake." The comment trended instantly. #System needs Kylian. Hour 10 closed with 800 errors resolved, predictive modeling at 200% baseline speed, and the wager's momentum firmly in Kylian's favor. The hologram pulsed with vitality, a living testament to clarity over complexity. Garza stood at the edge, arms crossed, realizing the trap he had set now threatened to snap shut on his own legacy. The timer ticked onward, each second a reminder that the boy from the maintenance corridors was rewriting the rules of an empire in real time. Investors leaned forward, no longer spectators but witnesses to a paradigm shift. The second climax settled into a charged hush, the room waiting for the next wave of revelations that 36 hours promised to deliver. Hour 18 dawned under the harsh glow of the boardroom lights, the timer now reading 18 hours remaining. Kylian's eyes, though ringed with the faint shadows of sustained focus, remained sharp as he navigated deeper into the architecture's lesser scrutinized layers. The hospital routing subsystem appeared on a side hologram, a lattice of medical supply chains threading through continents, ensuring ventilators reached ICUs and vaccines hit remote clinics on schedule. He paused, brow furrowing for the first time. "This part's different," he murmured. Dr. Voss leaned in. "Different how?" Kylian traced an anomalous thread with his finger. "Bad people are using the confusion to steal patient paths. They hide in the same telling not asking spots, but they leave extra doors open." Dr. Voss's breath caught. She pulled up access logs, cross-referencing timestamps. Her face drained of color. "Kylian, these intrusions match internal timestamps. Someone inside has been piggybacking on the errors." The room's hum faltered into stunned silence. Garza surged forward, voice booming with manufactured outrage. Corporate sabotage. Rival hackers have exploited our crisis. This proves external malice, not internal failure. He spun to the investors, arms wide. We'll trace the breach and sue for damages. Kylian did not flinch. He zoomed into the anomalous code, highlighting variable names, indentation quirks, even misspelled comments. No, Mr. Garza. Same coding style, same variable names like temp outlock and query fallback. Same comment typos. Check instead of check. It's your style. Your team's fingerprints. The hologram projected side-by-side comparisons. Garza Dynamics training templates versus the hidden backdoors. Identical syntax, identical habits. Dr. Voss ran a deeper audit, her fingers flying. He's right. The creation dates align with our quarterly training rollouts over the past 24 months. Someone embedded these during standard updates. Proof cascaded across the screens. 24 months of theft unfolded in chilling detail. Proprietary routes siphoned to shadow servers, contract bids mirrored to competitors, trade secrets funneled through the very confusion the team had ignored. Billions in intellectual property vanished, masked by the inefficiencies Kylian had begun to untangle. The hospital layer alone showed rerouted insulin shipments, delayed organ transports, lives indirectly endangered by the cover of chaos. Merskio stood slowly. You're telling us your own system was the leak. Garza opened his mouth, but no defense emerged. The evidence was irrefutable, projected in high definition for 7 million livestream viewers. International alert protocols triggered automatically. Interpol's secure line flashed on a subsidiary screen, pinging Garza Dynamics Cybersecurity Division. Agents requested immediate data dumps. Viewer count spiked to 7 million. The hashtag Garza espionage rocketing to global #1. News choppers circled the tower visible through the glass walls, their spotlights cutting through the late afternoon haze. Social media timelines filled with leaked snippets. Hospital diversion maps, stolen contract PDFs. Public outrage built in waves. Patients' families tagging the stream, demanding accountability. Kylian continued working, undeterred by the escalating storm. He sealed the first backdoor with a query rewrite, watching the intrusion path collapse. They used the confusion like a tunnel. Close the tunnel they can't hide. Dr. Voss assisted, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. 24 months means petabytes of data. We need to trace endpoints. Kylian nodded, initiating a recursive scan that followed the theft trails backward. Hidden servers in offshore jurisdictions lit up. Dummy corporations, encrypted relays. The hologram mapped a spiderweb of espionage spanning continents. Evergreen's team forwarded their own logs. Parallel intrusions surfaced in partner APIs. They hit us too, their director admitted. Same signature. Garza's lie unraveled thread by thread. He attempted another deflection. Isolated bad actors within the company. Rogue employees. We'll root them out. But Kylian pulled up personnel training records cross-matched with access timestamps. Dozens of mid-level coders, fresh from Garza's mandatory seminars, showed spikes in after-hours activity aligning with breach windows. Not rogue, Kylian said quietly. Trained. The telling not asking was the perfect cover. They learned it here. The room recoiled. The systemic flaw was not just inefficiency. It was a vulnerability weaponized from within. Interpol agents arrived virtually first, avatars materializing in the hologram's corner. Garza Dynamics, freeze all non-essential rights. We're assuming chain of custody. Physical teams were en route, badges already scanned at lobby security. The livestream chat erupted. Legal experts dissecting liability. Journalists live-tweeting indictments. Garza espionage trended alongside Kylian detective. Elena clutched Kylian's shoulder, whispering prayers in Spanish. He patted her hand. It's okay, Mom. We're closing the doors now. Hour 18 stretched into a crucible. Kylian sealed breach after breach, each closure triggering alerts from affected partners worldwide. A pharmaceutical giant in Basel reported recovered shipment data. A defense contractor in Seoul confirmed stolen satellite routes reclaimed. The theft's scale crystallized. $12 billion in proprietary value, countless strategic advantages handed to shadowy bidders. Garza stood isolated, investors forming a loose cordon around Kylian's station. Maersk's CEO addressed him directly. "Son, you've just prevented a catastrophe larger than the initial crash." Kylian shrugged. "The paths were sick. I'm helping them heal." Dr. Voss orchestrated the containment, coordinating with Interpol while Kylian focused on surgical fixes. The hospital layer stabilized first, insulin routes restored, organ transports rerouted to priority. Lives saved in real time, metrics scrolling. One ambulance in Lagos avoiding a 2-hour delay, a transplant team in Sydney receiving viable tissue. The human cost of the espionage hit home. Viewer donations poured into medical charities tagged to the stream. 7 million became 7.5, then 8. Garza's phone went dark. Board members ghosting, legal counsel advising silence. Rivals shifted from poaching to public condemnation, distancing themselves from the tainted tech. The hologram's breach map shrank with each closure, red nodes winking out. Kylian paused to sip water. Elena pressed into his hand. "How many more doors?" she asked. "A lot. But they all open the same way." His voice held no triumph, only determination. The third climax crested as Interpol took formal control. Physical agents entered the boardroom, badges gleaming under the lights. "Mr. Garza, step away from the consoles. All access is now under federal oversight." The CEO complied, face ashen. The timer read 17 hours and 45 minutes remaining, but the wager stakes had ballooned beyond money. Kylian continued under supervision, sealing the final hospital breach with a flourish of keystrokes. The subsystem glowed steady green. Patient paths secure. Theft vectors collapsed. Livestream analysts dubbed it the largest corporate espionage takedown in history. #GarzaEspionage trended with screenshots of the breach map. Kylian's calm explanations clipped into viral loops. Public sentiment swung hard. Garza villainized, Kylian lionized. Elena wept quietly, pride and fear mingling. Dr. Voss placed a hand on Kylian's shoulder. "You didn't just fix code. You exposed a crime." He nodded, eyes on the shrinking red nodes. The paths just needed truth. The boardroom transformed into a command center. Interpol analysts joined remotely, guiding Kylian through forensic preservation. Each sealed backdoor preserved evidence while restoring function. The 24-month theft timeline projected in layers. Initial training rollout, first siphon, escalation during the crash. The confusion errors had been the perfect smokescreen, inefficiencies masking malice. Garza's empire teetered on the brink of criminal scrutiny. The boy's revelations the fulcrum. Hour 18 closed with the hospital layer fully secured, breach map reduced by 40%, and Interpol embedding permanently. Viewer count stabilized at 8 million, the world watching a 10-year-old dismantle a conspiracy in real time. The wager's original terms felt quaint against the unfolding justice. Kylian stretched, cracking his knuckles. Next layer's finance routes. Same doors, bigger secrets. The timer ticked onward, but the true deadline was now measured in accountability, not hours. Hour 24 pressed in with the weight of midnight oil and unrelenting scrutiny. The timer glowed 12 hours remaining, a stark midpoint in the wager that now felt secondary to the unfolding investigation. Interpol agents hovered at stations, preserving logs while Kylian shifted focus to the quantum core interface, the beating heart of Garza Dynamics' predictive engine. This layer governed probabilistic routing, where shipments danced on waves of uncertainty to optimize paths across oceans and skies. Holograms rendered it as a swirling nebula of entangled nodes, each handshake a delicate negotiation between possibility and certainty. Kylian zoomed in, tracing the familiar pattern amid the chaos. Same confusion in the handshakes, he said, voice steady despite the hours. The core tells probabilities to collapse instead of asking them to align. Garza, flanked by legal counsel now silent at his side, scoffed loudly. Impossible. That interface requires PhD-level physics, quantum entanglement, superposition principles. A child couldn't possibly grasp it. Kylian did not rise to the bait. The gateway asks wrong. It commands the wave function instead of querying collapse conditions. Dr. Voss, eyes wide with anticipation, pulled up the core schema. The code was dense, equations woven into logic gates that defied classical intuition. Yet there it was, the directive query flip, buried in the entanglement resolver. Kylian proposed the change. A single operator swap in the handshake protocol, transforming a forceful collapse into a conditional query. Test it in sandbox first, Dr. Voss suggested, glancing at Interpol for approval. Agents nodded. A mirrored environment spun up instantly. Kylian entered the adjustment. The sandbox nebula stabilized, probabilities aligning with 89% fidelity in simulation. Real-world projection. Efficiency leap from current 58% to potentially 97%. The room leaned forward as one. Garza shook his head vehemently. Untested changes at this scale risk total collapse. We're talking systemic failure. Ships adrift, markets frozen. Kylian met his gaze evenly. Keeping the confusion risks more. The core's already unstable. This just lets it breathe. Merskio, arms crossed, chuckled softly. Child's logic wins again. Run it live with rollback. The change deployed at 2400 hours 12 into the wager. For a breathless 10 seconds, the holograms flickered, nodes recalibrating, handshakes renegotiating across the globe. Then surge. Efficiency metrics rocketed from 58% to 97% in a smooth curve. Global trade resumed at record speed. Containers cleared customs in minutes instead of hours. Predictive reroutes anticipated storms with pinpoint accuracy. Satellite handoff seamless. A freighter in the Indian Ocean adjusted sails autonomously, shaving a full day off its journey to Mumbai. Warehouse bots in Rotterdam synchronized inventories without lag. Predictive models forecasting demand with near-oracular precision. The nebula solidified into a crystalline lattice, every path optimized, every probability queried rather than commanded. Dr. Voss stared at the dashboards, voice hushed with reverence. 97%. We've never breached 85 in trials. Engineers erupted in verification cheers, cross-checking with partner systems. Costco reported a 42% drop in Trans-Pacific delays. Evergreen's fleets signaled all clear on quantum links. The efficiency surge rippled outward. Fuel savings in the millions, carbon emissions slashed, delivery promises met ahead of schedule. Livestream viewers hit 8.2 million, clips of the metric climb looping endlessly. Hashtag Quantum Kylian trended alongside hashtag 97% miracle. Garza's fear campaign faltered under the weight of data. He paced, gesturing wildly. This is reckless. One anomaly, and the entire core could deco here. Billions in cargo lost mid-ocean. But the holograms told a different story. Stability indexes at all-time highs. Error rates plummeting to negligible. Kylian sealed secondary handshakes in the core's periphery, each tweak amplifying the surge. A vaccine convoy in sub-Saharan Africa rerouted around a flash flood, arriving intact. Defense logistics in the Pacific synchronized with 99.8% accuracy. Maersk CEO addressed Garza directly. Your PhDs built a cage. The boy opened the door. Child's logic wins clearly. Laughter rippled, genuine this time. Investors nodded, recalculating valuations upward. Interpol agents paused their forensics to observe. This fix seals remaining breach vectors in the core, one noted. The espionage relied on handshake instability. Now it's ironclad. Kylian nodded, initiating a full propagation. The change cascaded through entangled nodes worldwide. Quantum routers updating in synchronized pulses. Efficiency held at 97%, with projections stabilizing at 96.8% under peak load. Global trade dashboards painted a portrait of Renaissance. Ports at capacity without congestion, airlines syncing cargo holds with ground transport flawlessly. Elena watched from the sidelines, tears glistening. Her son, once invisible in maintenance halls, now orchestrated planetary flow. She offered another water bottle. Kylian accepted with a grateful nod. Almost there, Mom. Dr. Voss pulled up historical benchmarks. Pre-crash, we hovered at 62%. This surpasses our wildest simulations. Engineers clustered, begging for walkthroughs. Kylian explained patiently. The core was shouting at probabilities. Now it listens. Alignment over force. The analogy stuck. Notes flew across tablets. Garza's objections grew desperate. Roll back now. We can't stake the company on unvetted code from a miner. But rollback simulations showed immediate reversion to 58% chaos. Delays compounding, breaches reopening. Maersk CEO waved a hand. The data speaks. Your fear is the risk, Garza. The room aligned behind the surge. Livestream donations for Kylian's future education fund topped 7 figures. Hashtag child logic wins trended globally. Hour 24 deepened the twist. The quantum fix revealed ancillary benefits. Energy consumption in data centers dropped 34%, cooling systems idling as handshakes resolved efficiently. Predictive accuracy hit 98.7% for high-value routes. Diamonds from Antwerp to Tokyo arriving under budget and ahead of schedule. The nebula's beauty mesmerized. Paths weaving like auroras, each query a gentle probe rather than a hammer blow. Kylian fine-tuned edge cases, sealing micro-confusions in superposition handlers. Efficiency nudged to 97.3%. Garza retreated to a corner, conferring in whispers with counsel. The fear campaign crumbled. Metrics were merciless. Interpol expanded their scope, crediting the fix with containing the espionage's quantum vectors. Without this, data loss continues indefinitely, an agent stated. Viewer count crested 8.5 million, world leaders tweeting praise. The surge became legend in real time. Kylian stretched the timer at 11 hours and 45 minutes. Cores stable. Next, we lock the interfaces. Dr. Voss smiled. You've given us a new baseline. The room buzzed with post-surge planning. White papers, patents, industry standards rewritten around query logic. Garza's empire, once teetering, now soared on the boy's insight. Maersk CEO clapped Kylian on the back gently. Child's logic didn't just win. It redefined victory. The quantum fix settled. Efficiency locked at 97%. Global trade humming at unprecedented harmony. The deep system twist complete. The wager hurtled toward its inexorable conclusion. Hour 36 arrived like the final note of a symphony that had rewritten the score mid-performance. The timer hit midnight with a soft chime that silenced the boardroom's low hum. Kylian's fingers lifted from the master console, the last keystroke sealing the 1256th error. A subtle query flip in a remote satellite relay over the Arctic. The espionage map, once a sprawling red web of theft, collapsed into a contained cluster of archived evidence, every vector traced and neutralized. $12 billion in stolen data, routes, contracts, predictive algorithms, defense alignments, now sat quarantined in Interpol's secure vaults, endpoints frozen across 3 continents. Physical agents who had entered hours earlier now stood in formation, laptops closed, the investigation shifting from containment to prosecution. The boy leaned back, exhaustion finally etching faint lines around his eyes, but satisfaction glowing brighter. Holograms achieved flawless harmony. Every node pulsed steady green, quantum interfaces aligned at 97.3% efficiency, predictive models forecasting with 99.1% accuracy. Global trade dashboards scrolled triumph. 0 delays in major ports, inventory synchronized continent-wide, carbon footprints minimized by optimized routing. A cargo plane en route from Shanghai to Sao Paulo adjusted altitude mid-flight for fuel savings equivalent to a small city's daily consumption. Stocks for Garza Dynamics surged 45% in after-hours trading, erasing the crash losses and adding a premium for the reborn architecture. Ticker symbols flashed across subsidiary screens, analysts on financial networks stammering superlatives. The empire did not just recover. It ascended. Garza stood at the periphery, suit rumpled, the weight of exposure crushing his posture. The room turned to him expectantly. Investors, engineers, Interpol, 8 million livestream viewers holding collective breath. He cleared his throat, voice cracking on the first syllable. I underestimated clarity over credentials. The public apology spilled out, raw and unscripted. Kylian Alexander revealed truths my teams, my systems, my leadership buried under layers of assumption. I mocked potential and nearly lost everything to pride. He faced the boy directly. You earned every cent and more. With trembling fingers, he initiated the $100 million transfer from his personal account, confirmation pinging on the main hologram for all to see. The funds routed to a trust in Kylian's name, irrevocable. Ovation erupted without prompt. Engineers clapped first, then executives, Maersk CEO leading a standing wave that swept the room. Elena rushed forward, enveloping her son in a tearful embrace as cameras captured the moment. Dr. Voss joined, then others, the applause thundering against glass walls. Livestream chat exploded into heart emojis and celebration gifs. 8 million viewers peaking as networks cut to the scene. #Kylian100M trended worldwide. Clips of the transfer looping alongside Garza's humbled words. Interpol's lead agent approached Garza with cuffs discreetly at the ready, but paused for the formalities. Mr. Garza, you'll accompany us for questioning regarding the internal facilitation of the breach. He nodded numbly, the collapse complete. Board members averted eyes. Rivals watched via feed, already drafting statements distancing themselves. The ovation continued, now mingled with chants of Kylian's name. He waved shyly, overwhelmed but grounded by Elena's steady presence. Systems perfected extended beyond code. The architecture's new baseline, query-driven, clarity-first, propagated to partner networks voluntarily. Costco adopted the handshake protocol within minutes, reporting immediate gains. Evergreen queued updates for dawn deployment. Industry consortia formed ad hoc committees to standardize the Alexander query model. White papers drafted in real time cited Kylian's analogies. Paths as conversations, systems as listeners. Efficiency held firm under stress tests. Interpol ran live. Simulated storms, cyber probes, demand spikes, all repelled with graceful queries. Stocks climbed another 3% on the apology's authenticity. Analysts praising the humility pivot. The $100 million transfer finalized with blockchain verification, public ledger immutable. Kylian's trust fund ballooned further with viewer donations, 9 figures within the hour. Educational foundations pledged matching grants. Elena whispered, "What now, Mijo?" He smiled faintly. "Help more paths find their way." Garza's collapse deepened in the ovation's wake. Flanked by agents, he signed preliminary statements admitting oversight in training protocols that enabled the espionage. The 24-month theft timeline projected one final time. Initial embeds during seminars he personally approved, escalations masked by the crash he had downplayed. Public exposure was total. Regulatory filings triggered, class actions queued, congressional inquiries looming. Yet the room's energy remained celebratory. The apology a cathartic hinge. Maersk shook Kylian's hand. "You didn't just fix a system. You restored faith in possibility." Ovation swelled again. 8 million viewers became a global vigil. World leaders tweeted congratulations. Youth STEM programs announced Kylian scholarships. The boardroom transformed into legend. Glass walls reflecting flashing cameras from the plaza below, where crowds gathered chanting support. Holograms now flawless, looped a montage. Before crash, during chaos, after perfection. Metrics scrolled eternally. Plus 45% stock, 97.3% efficiency, 0 active threats. Kylian addressed the room briefly. Voice soft but amplified. The paths were confused, not broken. Anyone can ask the right question if they listen. Silence fell, then thunderous applause. Dr. Voss wiped tears. Textbook redefined. Interpol sealed the espionage map as evidence. The $12 billion recovery beginning with asset freezes worldwide. Garza departed in custody, head bowed. The wager's cruel failure clause rendered irrelevant by justice. The ultimate climax settled into resonance. Systems perfected hummed in harmony. Stocks solidified gains. Garza's collapse catalyzed reform. The $100 million initiated a new era. Trust-funded ovation echoing, 8 million witnesses to a Maid's son toppling hubris with truth. Elena held Kylian close as the room chanted. The deadline passed not in defeat, but in dawn. The boardroom's transformation completed in the ovation's echo. Engineers initiated knowledge transfer sessions, documenting every fix for open-source adaptation. Garza's empire gifting its rebirth to the world. Stocks closed the day up 48%, market cap surpassing pre-crash highs. Interpol expanded the case internationally. Arrests pending in 4 countries. The espionage's full exposure. $12 billion traced, perpetrators mapped. Promised restitution on a historic scale. Kylian yawned, the adrenaline ebbing. Elena guided him to a couch at the room's edge. Rest now. He nodded, eyes closing as applause faded to respectful hush. Dr. Voss overlaid the final hologram. A single line of code, the first query fix, framed as artifact. Maersk's CEO pledged the first industry adoption. Alexander Protocol. Official by morning. Garza's public apology replayed on loop. His voice a footnote to the ovation. The $100 million transfer sparked global funds. Underdog geniuses, corridor scholars, unseen talents. 8 million viewers dispersed into action. Petitions for education reform, corporate audits inspired by the breach. The ultimate